And good morning, and it's time for Politically Speaking with your host, Larry Novak. Heard every Saturday morning at 11:05. Join in by calling 508-822-1106. It's time for Larry Novak and Politically Speaking.
This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and I welcome you all back. My guest today is Jay McMahon. We're going to talk about, he ran for Attorney General. We are going to talk about the condition of the GOP in Massachusetts. I did an analysis, and I predominantly spent a lot of time looking at the state Senate fights. Not one GOP member outspent any of when they were challenged, the incumbents or our challenges. They were all outspent. If we're not able to raise the money, you cannot compete. Do you agree with that, Jay?
I do. First of all, Larry, good morning to you. Thank you for having me on today, and good morning to everyone in Bristol County, Plymouth County, and all southeastern Massachusetts. Good to be here with you today. Now, let me talk about some of the state candidates that ran in the 2018 election. I got a chance to meet with a whole bunch of them, Larry. They were good candidates, good people. All of the ones that I was talking with were men, and because they ran. I mean, it's just what it is.
Well, Kiko ran too.
But she ran for state treasurer.
Right.
But I'm talking about the state senates. The people running for state senate, they were all men. And I got to tell you, they were good candidates, great candidates.
But they had the inability to raise any money.
Exactly right. Now, we kind of know why that is, though.
Because it's the image of never winning. These districts and the town committees don't compete against them. When I took Bette Brockman back over, I saw it there. If you don't run candidates, it continues to go down. The enrollment continues to fall. The party should be a big open tent that anyone wants to join should be allowed to join. We shouldn't be the party of exclusivity. And Trump would say the same thing. He doesn't believe it. He's the leader of the party. He wants an open tent, so somebody in Bourne has to be different than somebody in Brockton to get elected.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I agree with the big tent concept. I really do. I mean, there's nothing in me that says you can't come here because of this or because of that. What happens a lot of times, though, is that especially people with a liberal bent, the reason why they're not going to come in here is because Republicans are passionate about their issues. The liberals are passionate about their belonging. In other words, they belong to their party, so they follow like blind sheep. They
want to dictate, the liberals, your existence from cradle till you die.
I know.
And that's not good politics. It never has been. But you have to, I think you do stand for things, but you have to be broad enough to understand somebody in Easton has got to say something different than somebody in Chatham.
Yeah. I agree. Now, I'm going to give you two examples. We got a guy named John McDonald that ran up in Lowell for state senate. He worked real hard. He's an American hero. He was a veteran from the United States Air Force, and a great guy. Passionate, good on issues, very sharp guy, had some big rallies because I attended some of those rallies, and a great guy. And he lost 70 to 30%. People are not listening to us.
It's because there's no name ID with any of these candidates.
Well, but how else do you get a name if you don't run?
You have to run, and you have to raise. If the Democrat... Let me go to someone that was very successful in this state, Margaret Heckler.
Yeah.
The only race she ever lost was the last one.
Right, because of redistricting.
No, she was outspent.
Okay.
2-1. She had always been able to outspend her opponent 2-1 before that, even when she was on the governor's council. So there is a direct correlation in the ability to raise money. I've seen it over the years. When I was successful and got elected in Brockton, I outspent them handily. And when you don't have that resources to be able to do it, you just can't get. We start as a deficit to begin with because the enrollment numbers favor the Democrats. So how do you swing over some of the core voters? You have to get your message out, and you have to overwhelm them with the message. It's like the stampede. If you can stampede them with the momentum, then people think you're going to win.
Well, okay, so let's look at the races. There's another race, a senatorial race that was in Western Worcester County, state senator. It was Steve Hall. He was a Republican businessman running against Ann Goby. That's been in there for about 18 years. And Steve Hall lost, but it was a 55-45. It was the closest race
in the state.
It was the closest race in the state where a Republican was running against an incumbent. It was the closest race.
And how did he out, Joey, look up, go to the Office of Political Finance and see how much money he raised. I would imagine.
Yes, Stephen Hall.
Stephen
Hall. He lives in his hometown, his home city is Sturbridge.
Just go to legislative, the list, and they'll bring it up.
Be there. Yeah, he ran for state senate.
But I mean, and there was that woman, Margaret Workman or Woolley or something. She was competitive too.
Which one? What district are you talking about?
That up in that Concord, Lexington.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yep.
She actually spent a lot of money to be competitive. She didn't win. But, there is no message that comes out of the Republicans either.
Actually, there is. I got to tell you something. It's the press coverage that we're not getting. For instance, my campaign on every issue, Larry, I had nuts and bolts approach. Maura Healey had nothing. In fact, if you Google our debates, the first one was before WGBH. The second one was at UMass Boston. The second one, you're gonna laugh, and it's entertaining to watch, because I really go after her. And so she stopped. She wouldn't do a third debate because, well, I guess she says there's no need for her to get up there and be punched at. So she stopped the third debate. But somehow she must have known, as long as she stops the damage, she's going to win. She did.
But
she had no answer to any of the issues.
But she also raised millions more, too. I mean, I think that has an impact. If they're going to run candidates, they got to support them, the Republicans.
You know something? I got to tell you, though, I don't know what she spent her money on. Now, we could go on OCPF and find out how much she spent. She had millions. She spent very little. I'll tell you why. You go around throughout the whole state, you could not even see her sign. Now, I know people say signs don't vote. Yes, that's right. Signs don't vote.
So they stampede momentum. People think you can win if you have a ton of signs.
I'm going to tell you something. West of 495, she had no signs.
And she did the West. Where did she do the worst?
Western Mass. Yeah, right. She did I did good out there, but of course it wasn't enough to swing Boston. And you know something? That is what really got the election anyway.
Jay, look at this no Republican Party in Boston.
I know, a couple of wards, and I've been up there to see those wards, peoples. But you're right, just a couple of wards in Boston
and they don't have an active city committee. Years ago, that committee was active and did things. Today, it doesn't exist. I mean, most of them don't think it's the, people talk a good game, but when you analyze the results, we were outspent in every contested race in the state.
Everywhere I go, people ask me, how much support did you get from the Mass GOP? And it's a little embarrassing. I said, I didn't get hardly any at all. I mean, I got you. Let me say this. Let me give
I'm not surprised.
But let me just say this. What they did do was they gave me use of the victory offices. Now,
and what a waste of money the victory offices were.
I'm not so sure if it was a waste of money, because it was a place where you can drop off literature, and they actually had people that went out and did do some door-to-door canvassing. So I can't say that
I did
it was
a lot of
waste.
door-to-door canvassing for John Cruz and Brockton, and the list that they gave me I got them all, but I mean, they were probably going to vote that way anyways. The Democrats did it better in Brockton. They went after the undecided.
Absolutely.
And that is where we should have been sent, but the victory officers sent us to the pro-leaning Republican voters.
In other words, basically, they were trying to strengthen their own base, and that was it.
Right. And I think what they should have done is they should have turned out more voters into the areas that were needed.
I heard a lot of people say that. Oh, so the bottom line was, now the governor won 65-35, maybe even a little more than that. Everybody knew he was going to win. All the polls said that. I think some of that money could have been used to help Deal, could have been used to help me, could have been used to help the other three constitutional candidates.
I think you might have stood a chance. I don't think Deal ever stood a chance, and I told you that repeatedly.
Well, you did, but I got to tell you something.
Let me tell you, man, he could build a grassroots. Brockton's a democratic place.
Right.
I have never saw such dislike of a candidate in the city of Brockton as Deal.
Yeah, you've told me that.
I mean, and that's an indication that he was inflaming the Democratic base to come out, and they were working. I don't see, to be honest with you, Jay, I don't see where Deal goes from here. I can't see, the state committee leadership has said that they are not going to employ Deal. He had an agreement not to run for chairman, to be employed by the state committee, and the new chairman said it isn't going to happen. He's not being employed there.
Well, now you got news that I didn't receive. I do know that he's being considered for a position in the Trump administration, but that's all I know.
I would say that won't happen. My input in Washington tells me that that's not going to happen.
Well, be that as it may.
He did the party a service by running. He should be commended for that. He went out and gave up a state rep seat
Right.
That he would have held.
Right.
He should be commended for that. But he was not able to increase the base. He was viewed, and I saw an exit polling recently, he was viewed as too conservative for Massachusetts.
Okay, well, that may be so, but I will tell you this. It isn't for lack of trying. I was everywhere in the state, and I saw him. He would be in other places of the state, or he would be where I was as well. So I saw him everywhere all the time.
Well, I would imagine he's going to have a very difficult time, bouncing back from that, 18 months that he did spend a lot of time. But what I did see, Jay, is over the years, he didn't do well on the special election in the city of Brockton either. He got the lowest percentage anyone's ever gotten.
In that senatorial district,
right.
Yeah.
And he didn't carry the Senate district in the Senate fight, which surprised me.
Right.
I thought because with the Whitman address, more people would vote for him.
Right.
He didn't. He lost the district to our incumbent Senator Warren, who I think's a nutcase, but now she's running for president. But the condition of it is that you need to be able to be on TV continuously in those statewide races.
I know.
The party needs to start raising money to put it aside. Holding the governorship is great, but we never expand beyond that.
We don't. And that every once in a while, like with Scott Brown, there'll be a hiccup in the history, and we got a Republican senator, Ed Brooke, Scott Brown. I can't remember any others in between.
Oh, Salt Star was before Ed Brooke, and he was there forever.
And you and I may remembered our parents talking about it when we were in kindergarten.
Right. I mean, and it hasn't been recent at all. I mean, we haven't elected people. But when you look at the thing, the fundamental analysis is these town committees barely work. They don't do any work anymore.
I got to tell you something. I went to almost every single functioning Republican town committee.
And how many
Republican
aren't
city-
functioning?
Well, the ones I went to were very, I will say they were very helpful to me in the primary. That's why I won the primary 60-30.
Right. And, the candidate you ran against was never going to, he wasn't dynamic at all. And he had no message. I couldn't quite understand why he was running in the primary.
I'll tell you, if it went for the primary, we might not have gotten any press coverage. There was something, somebody
It's
said,
always good to have a primary.
I know, because it fleshes out the issues and allows...
It allows you to raise money and build an organization.
Absolutely. So I can thank my Republican opponent for that. And he came out afterwards and supported me and everything. So, I mean, that worked out.
I don't
worked out
think
all right.
you'll see him that active again.
I don't know. He ran for Congress.
And that's a seat, well, stay with that race.
Yeah.
That's a seat that we should have been more competitive in.
I know.
Tedeschi did not do well down there.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because he again was everywhere. He was all over the place down there. I saw him in places in Cape Cod when I was campaigning. I campaigned a lot, but I spent most of my time outside of my area because I figured I was going to carry it anyway.
And, that's good strategy. But, I mean, he had a name, too. I don't understand why he wasn't able to do better. I know that the Trump factor is a real negative in the Commonwealth.
Well, that we all think collectively, because when you look at the numbers, we all lost by about the same amount. Now, Deal got like 3 or 4 points more than me, but Deal spent $3 million. I spent $140,000.
Right.
So there's huge. So I'm not so sure that the money factor in that regard, because those people were probably going to vote for us anyway.
Yeah. You probably hit the base vote and then from there. But the interesting thing is, I think in the Attorney General's race, if you had the money and you were able to run comparison issue ads, it would have tightened the race.
I agree with that. What you just said is that if we had the money to run the TV commercials and the ads, we could have done it.
Right.
Now, if this were to go again a second time, we've learned a lot.
It's money.
It is money, and there's ways to target those groups right now. And I'll put it out there to you. You may have heard this, Larry, but this has only come about in the last 10, 15 years, and it goes like this. You advertise on cable TV, and the reason you do that is you're able to target by zip code, and you pay by zip code. Now, I'll give you an example. Some people say, well, what ads? What do you mean cable TV? Most of your carriers now, very few people have the antenna on the roof. They go by the cable system.
Right.
And you'll see every now and then, if you're watching a big show, a national show, you're watching NBC, CBS, ABC, you will see on your show, you see a local ad, like the car dealership ads. That's how you do
Targeting it by zip code.
Exactly right.
And the zip code, you would hit it, the base, where the Democrats are the strongest. Running issues makes a difference.
Absolutely. And so we're going to do that. If I run next time, those are the things we're going to concentrate on doing. We're going to target those people through the zip codes.
You need to raise, probably, to be competitive. How much money? You'll never outraise the Democrats. Jim Lyons was raised. He was outspent 3-1.
Yeah. And he was the dean of the conservatives in the House.
Right. Well, Jay, I've always said this, and I've been involved a lot longer than you.
I know.
The conservatives do not put their money where their mouth is.
My wife said that to me on the way down here. I told her, I said, you come with me. Larry wants you. You'll sit on one side of Larry, I'll sit on the other, and you tell him, because she said, that is exactly what she said. She goes, you know something? The reason you lost is conservatives didn't dig into their wallet with you. I got a lot of money. I'll tell you what, demographically, Asian Americans, they came out of every corner for me, and I absolutely loved them doing that. I'm still in touch with them. I'm actually going to an event that they're having tonight.
They're good people.
They are excellent people. They work hard.
And especially the Vietnamese, they tend to be more conservative because they've lived under a communist and saw their country taken over under the communists.
I had a woman with a Chinese ancestry. She was like in her late 60s, and she came up to me and she says, "Mr. McMahon, if our founding fathers say," and she quoted Franklin, she quoted Washington, she quoted Jefferson, and I'm stretching my brain to high school to remember these quotes, but I mean, I know where they were.
Right.
And she's giving it to, she goes, "If they do that, why are Americans embracing socialism?" And she looked right at me, she grabbed both my arms, Larry, and she says, "Mr. McMahon, you tell them they don't want socialism. Socialism kicked open my door when I was a little girl and took my father, my brother, and my uncle, and we never saw them again. The Red Army came in and took them out, and we never saw them again."
And it is the truth, and you wonder, the Democratic Party is being taken over by socialists. And that congresswoman that was elected in New York.
Ortezio.
Right.
Cortez.
Off the wall. I mean,
all right, so
she doesn't believe in any of the mainstream views of America.
Okay, so inside information: there are Democrats within her district, the old guard Democrats, and they're going to primary her next time around. They're already talking about it.
But you know, they need to work. They need to go back to the grassroots. You know, when I originally had you on the show, I tried to warn you what would happen with these things, and you have to say what I told you turned out to be the case.
It did. Everything that you said, because you're a great statistician, and you're a tactician, and you're a good analyst, and everything you say. And it's not like I didn't believe you. It's just that I'm saying to myself, you know, we're going into this with our eyes open. I'll tell you why. So that kept me from being completely demoralized.
You shouldn't be demoralized.
When I got no support from the GOP, because you told me they're not going to support you. And I said, why? What if I win the primary? You said, they don't care.
They don't. They don't care. They only care about one thing, and that was to hold the incumbent. It's patronage driven. It always has been, and the party will continue to crumble. It's down to 10%. When you look at the chairman's fight, Lyons former state representative Jim Lyons did very well.
47 to 30.
That is the biggest margin I have ever seen.
And you know something? I know why that happened. I'll tell you why that happened. These particular Republican state committee people, the men and women in each senatorial district, have heard it from all the conservatives that we're getting sick and tired of our party not helping those candidates, because they know. And I think what happened was they said, we need a change of direction, and Jim Lyons became available.
Jim Lyons won for the following reasons.
Okay.
He was able to neutralize the governor who could have turned those votes. The governor didn't get into it.
No, that is true. The governor said, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to hands
the
off.
governor's not going to run again. It is, 2 terms, and he's going to, this will be the finish of his term. Karen Polito will not be able to win the governorship.
Who do you think she's going to run against? Maura Healey.
Yes, and I think she'll be challenged in the primary by somebody. There's always a new face. Somebody with a lot of money will come in and think they can be governor and spend it, and it will make the primary more exciting.
Yeah.
And which is a good thing. It will build the registration numbers. Karen Polito has a fight on her hands.
You know something? I got word out to her that she should have helped me during my campaign, for the simple reason is she wants Maura Healey to spend down that war chest that Maura is
she
holding.
didn't.
She didn't.
I mean, so that should answer the thing. Brent Anderson was her candidate. The governor kept his hands off, and she didn't do enough to really close that gap. Brent Anderson's personality was not the greatest personality in the world. Jim Lyons is engaging, funny, and he got a lot of moderate votes because he reached out to them. So that tells you right there. The State House crowd is tough to beat when they join forces to oust to support somebody. But he's got a very tough task.
He does.
You have falling registration numbers. You do not fund the campaigns of most of them. People don't have a positive image of the Republican Party in the state. It doesn't run candidates in most districts. There's terrible infighting that hasn't helped in the long run. It's detracted from the ability to elect people. Your ability to elect should be at your state rep and senate areas.
That's right.
And they don't even have candidates in most districts. It's a net. We lost one Senate seat and 2 House seats, if I recall.
Yeah, and that's not good.
No, we're down to 6 in the Senate, and what is it, 32 in the House?
Yeah, and I got to tell you, as I said, I met a lot of candidates on the trail. Whenever I would go somewhere, I would invite the local candidates, and I'd have them come up, and a lot of them would thought that I initially wanted them to come up and support me, and I said, no, I want you to talk about what you're going to do for this district. I want to give you that platform.
Right.
So they would come, and they would speak and everything, and someone would thank me, someone would, but I didn't looking for thanks. I was looking for them, and I'll tell you what, collaterally, it caused a bigger draw. We had more people at our activities, at our meetings and stuff. And it was great. And I love to have them come up and talk.
And that's what you want to do. You know, for too long, the grassroots of the party have been ignored. They receive no benefit for doing that, so they don't think it's worthwhile. People look to get something out of when they're involved in politics.
I know.
And it's not just issues. They want to be recognized for their involvement.
And one of the things my wife said was, what people don't know is that these candidates work hard, and their life is literally on hold. Like my wife said, for 18 months, we didn't even go out and this and that. And so lately, my wife and I have been doing a lot of things together. We took our vacation a couple of weeks after the election because...
Where did you go?
We went to the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. We absolutely love it there.
Yes, I do too. I think it's a beautiful area.
Sure.
And did you have a good time?
Oh, absolutely. We spent a lot of the time we spent just laying on the beach, just recuperating.
Unwinding.
Yeah, and of course we were on a particular beach where we had service, so we could order drinks and all kinds of stuff. We had a blast, and then we went over to Virgin Gorda, which was really a lot of fun. We like to go all over all the various island excursions over there.
Now, have you also got back into the practice of law? That's a big adjustment.
And I'll tell you what, it is a big adjustment, and you would know because you're a lawyer. But it was easy to do, and I had clients coming out of the woodwork, people from all over the state, because they heard me talk, and a lot of people would say, I want that guy for my lawyer and everything. So next thing I know, I've got cases coming out of the.
That's good.
It is good. Business is good. I can tell you.
And that if business picks up, it was a worthwhile endeavor.
That is true, and I've got some pretty big cases that have called up and come through the door because of that. So in a sense, I'm glad. But I want to tell you something, Larry. There were so many things that I was ready to do to help people in their various issues, and I could list them all right down to from mortgage foreclosures all the way down the list to all kinds of stuff.
She's never going to do that now.
No, she isn't. She isn't doing anything.
She now talks about the opium crisis. That's her number one issue.
Because we raised it all the way. I was bashing the daylights out of her every day on that.
Right, and that's why she's now taking it on. She did nothing with the foreclosure issues.
No.
She allows the big banks to walk over her.
I know.
You know what? And the big banks don't do anything for anybody. I actually think Warren's strategy of attacking them is probably going to be successful in some ways. The banks need to understand that they're there. It isn't a right, it's a privilege to serve the public.
By the way, you're going to give people the number to call us because
508-822-1106. We're going to take a short break.
I just want to mention the last time the unenrolled numbers were under 1 million was 1970.
This is Larry Novak, back with Politically Speaking. My guest today is Jeremy Manning, was the candidate for Attorney General. We're talking about the future of the GOP. If you wish to reach us, call us at 508-822-1106. Jay, let's go back for a few minutes because I'm interested in pursuing this. The candidate you mentioned, Steve Hall, raised $24,000
for senatorial.
He was outspent 4-1.
Wow, and he only lost by 10 points, which means 6 points he would have won if 6 points went
and
the other way.
And if he had more money, he would have been able to pull it off.
I think so. Now, he had a lot of volunteers, but of course, you got grassroots, and that's what it is. That's what Bernie Sanders ran, grassroots.
But Bernie Sanders also raised record amounts of money.
Yeah, and he did it by saying, just send me 20. Don't send, I'm not looking to get $1,000 from you, send me 20, 25, 30.
But the liberals are more willing to depart with their money.
That's true.
I mean, if you want to change the political philosophy of state, you need to have grassroots support and money.
There's no question that money, you can do a lot of things effectively and target a lot of voters with money.
And the other major weakness is campaign professional staffing in Massachusetts. Now, you had a campaign manager.
I ultimately, at the time of the convention, my campaign manager was Dean Cavaretta. He was associated with Karen Polito in her early career up until she became the running mate for Charlie Baker. Then they told her, the Baker people took over and said, we don't need you now. He was also involved in Trump's campaign in 2000. He was Trump's campaign manager statewide 2016 in Massachusetts. I sought him out. He didn't seek me out, but I met him on the campaign trail in Fitchburg. He happened to be at the same event I was. He heard me speak. He came up afterwards. He was working on Deal's campaign at the time, gave me his card and said, I like what you got to say. I want you to call me. I'll help you in any way I can. I had a campaign manager at the time, but it wasn't, he didn't have, I don't want to say his name, but he didn't have the, let's say, the statewide experience that I needed. And we made a decision to go with Dean. We did it about maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the convention, and he was able to steer us through the convention. We said, well, let's stay on till the primary and then to the general election. Now, I like the guy. I liked his tactics. Dean's. And
you had a finance guy too.
Yes, I did. I had a guy named Ryan Hawks.
I actually know him because he does clothing.
Yes, he does. That's his business. It's funny when people support you from the backgrounds they come from. Most of the people that supported me had a business background.
He worked for the Republican State Party in Florida.
He did. He's got a tremendous background, and he does. He is a political consultant, and yes.
How did you rate his performance?
His performance, let's say it's. I would say I would do it as an A, but I will say this. It's not because I personally liked him. He could be he could get a little bit under your skin because he was on top of everything, and he would keep on top of everything to the point where he would keep asking you the same question every day. Is this okay? Is this still on? Is this still on? Is this right? Have you done this? Have you done that? Even when you say yes. Now, I give him an A because he stayed on top of it. See, his whole heart and soul was into the campaign.
Yes, he actually worked very hard.
He did.
I can see.
He did work hard, and he was a good fundraiser. He did what he could. Well, see, we all did what we could. If we could do it in conjunction with the Mass GOP, it would have been great. But they were busy with the governor.
Well, that was
exclusively.
Yeah, that's their only purpose.
That was their only purpose. I think that's going to change with Jim Lyons.
Well, if it doesn't, it's going to get weaker and weaker.
I know. But my guy was the person you mentioned, was Ryan Hawks, and he's from West Newbury, but he's really known well in Essex, throughout Essex County in particular. And that was helpful. That was great.
He's very into Republican politics.
He is. He really. He would be what I would call. He's just a little bit to the right side of moderate. So I would call him generally a conservative. He might take a little exception to that because he is also a big tent Republican. Yeah.
Well, he understands that you have to get everybody involved. If you don't get people involved, there's no purpose of it.
Right.
If you, how active is the town committee in Bourne?
Very active. Bourne is a model. If people want to look for a model RTC, they want to go to Bourne. We have active fundraising. Can I tell you something? I was in Bourne for several years before I decided to run for Attorney General. The reason why I ran for Attorney General is because I saw that Maura Healey was just a political activist, but she was doing nothing of anything substantial for the people. Suing Trump, but that was all. So
how does that help the people?
Doesn't help them at all. And like you and I talked about once before, we got foreclosures going all over the place, illegal foreclosures, but no Attorney General is saying anything about it.
And they don't even follow the statute anymore. And the courts don't enforce it.
See, if you rely on the courts for your civil rights, you're going to have some problems. When you have public employees, your public employees taking away your civil rights, it's time to throw them out of office.
Oh, I agree with you. If you don't get rid of them, we should clean house.
Absolutely.
The problem is the public doesn't know all the shortcomings. The Boston Globe is, favors the Democratic Party. It always has.
Yep.
And the Herald.
They were helpful to me. They didn't support me, unfortunately, but I mean, whenever they quoted something, they quoted it accurately. I was surprised that they supported her, knowing all the shortcomings, knowing the whole list of items that I gave them.
They supported her for the simple reasons that they probably had owed or something.
I know. You're right.
I mean, it's time to tell it like it is and disclose the stuff.
I know.
And they had some political obligation to her, and they didn't do it. When you look at these 40 districts, did none of them organize on a district-wide basis? Very few have political PACs for their state committee people to give money to candidates. My district, there's nothing. I mean, they don't even show up at meetings.
I know.
I mean, Jeannie Falcone does.
I've seen Jeannie at a lot of my own meetings. At my fundraisers, she showed up.
But you don't see State Committee man Gordon Andrews at any of them. He was a big Brent Anderson supporter, and he was John Kingston's coordinator. That should tell you.
Yeah, it tells you something.
Tells you something. He has been a disaster. And a disappointment. But, I mean, if they don't understand it costs you money. If you do that job right, you have to spend money to make money.
Right.
I mean, and those are major issues. The other major issue is you're not going to win statewide if they don't run candidates everywhere. It brings out more pro-Republican votes if the ballot is filled up.
It does. And you know something, Larry? Like I said, at some of the senatorial candidates where the Republicans actually ran someone, those are people, grassroots people who stepped up. It wasn't like they were recruited. If we waited for the GOP to recruit people, there'd be nobody running. And they were good candidates, good qualified candidates.
But if you look at it, what assistance? I mean, and it's wrong. I saw in this thing Sullivan's daughter received the most money of any candidate.
Allison, yeah.
Now, wait a minute. I mean, is that, should she? Was it because of somebody he knew? I mean, come on. It should have been fairly divided. She got over $100,000 in aid.
I know.
And didn't win overwhelmingly. I got something in the mail recently about her hiring a private detective to investigate her opponent. I mean, which I don't think is for that type of office is warranted.
Yeah, state rep. She took over Jeff Deal's state.
She would have won anyways because Jeff
would've.
Deal was on the top. If we didn't carry that district, we would have carried nothing in the state.
Yeah, I can tell you this. She was a good candidate, but she did get the support. I was at an event where she was at there. They invited me, and I appreciated being invited to it. The lieutenant governor was there. So
she got a lot of help. And you know, for people that have never done anything, so all my years of involvement, they did very little to help any other candidate.
I know. I think Jim Lyons should have gotten more help because they knew that they were targeting him. And and in all fairness to Jim, he did support the governor when the conservatives were waning about supporting Charlie Baker. Jim Lyons put his neck on the line because he actually spoke in a video that was at the convention. Jim Lyons was on there supporting the governor. So I just think that Jim should have gotten a little bit more support.
You're on the air with Larry Novak.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Just listen to you comparing notes and whatnot, the issues that Republicans have within their own party, and the Democrats, and of course, you know, being a Republican running in Massachusetts is almost futile to begin with. But, except unless you're Charlie Baker, which he handled himself very well, and he had a ton of money, so. But here's my thing. What's going on in the Republican Party and what's happening in the Democratic Party, in my mind, this last election, meaning the national election, not just the primaries for the local. What I saw was the Democratic Party has cohesion. Having Hillary Clinton as their candidate was just all wrong. But they have cohesion. They actually operate as a movement, as one continuous movement. And what I'm getting from what I saw this past with the Republicans, they knew that Trump was not going to make it in this office. And he's not. He just went and begged on hands and knees to the New York Times, who's been dissing him since day one, and went and asked him if they would write a decent epitaph for him.
Well,
I mean, that was embarrassing.
But don't you think the economy is better under Trump? The border security is highlighted. He has highlighted some issues that needed to be, and he's brought attention to them. Do you think the border wall should be built?
Well, okay, so the issues that you said he's highlighted doesn't necessarily mean that they've better at
well, the economy is definitely.
You look at the economy; it's a constant reflection of what Wall Street's doing. Wall Street works independent.
Right, but
taking credit for things does not.
But the credit is deserved by anybody that's in the office. The economy is controlled by regulations. It's controlled by government spending. Those have major impacts on the economic growth of the nation.
Well, stability does, but there are outside factors that don't come out of the executive branch.
But I mean, you have to give him credit for the economy.
For 6 months or a year without a president. But if you take into account the tariffs
have made us more competitive.
What's that?
The tariffs are making us more competitive. It is. Why should China be able to dump?
When our prices on our products are going up.
But why should China be able to dump all of its products in the United States? I mean, that's the key issue. Does it? And it impacts on our labor force. Then China has been dumping, and the government of China subsidizes the dumping. And because it's a communist communist rule. You have to look at some of those things. Some of the things
That's been going on since I was a little kid.
Yeah, but it got to the
Trump
point.
is addressing it.
Yeah.
Trump's addressing it.
Taiwan and China, but the economy didn't. It still functioned. Okay, when these tariffs come into play, what they're doing is the steel production in the United States is still what it always was. But what's getting hurt now is that if manufacturers have to use any of the products or have gotten accustomed to using products from, say, China or just about anywhere else on the planet,
but it stimulates economic growth back in the...
How is that a benefit?
It's stimulating economic growth because companies are coming back to the United States. Under Obama, companies were leaving America in droves. They're coming back now in major ways. They're building plants. They're opening and employing more people. The exodus is not going out of the country. It's coming the other way. Over-regulation. The banks...
So you want to go back to coal plants with it and throwing lead and mercury or whatever else into the air?
But that's just one...
You want to go back to coal-burning plants? Is that what you want?
No, that's just one area you're talking about. The overall economy is better under this president than it was under Obama.
Oh, there's no question about it. More people are working. For instance, it's the best employment rate for blacks in history for African Americans, and it's the best for Hispanics and African Americans, and it's the second best for women. So we have an economy right now that has full employment.
Right.
I'm telling you what, you can't get better than that.
No, you can't.
Especially when it's not a wartime, and it's not a wartime economy. So it is the best.
Figures are thrown all over the place. Unemployment figures and employment. You can't throw that at me. They justify themselves with those numbers.
No, they don't. They're real numbers. These are real numbers used by real government sources. And it's not just throwing at you. It's just that you're so used to hearing bad news for unemployment that when all of a sudden we get good news, you can't believe it. But it's still true.
And
well, it depends on whose mouth it came out of. Now there's Trump sitting there watching everything that everybody else is watching from our people that are taking care of it.
You're on the air with Larry Novak.
Hello, Larry. This is Bob from Brockton. How you doing?
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Actually, I'm from Delaware right now, but the gentleman who is defending China, me and you have been around long enough to remember who built the Panama Canal?
The United States.
Yes, and guess who controls Panama Canal right now?
China.
And this guy is defending China? You've got to be kidding me. I just wanted to make that quick comment. A lot of people don't realize that China is going throughout the world trying to take over everything.
How's the weather in Delaware, Bob?
Like Obama never stood up to him, and he let the Panama Canal go to China, and at least we have a president in there who's really trying to defend this country. God bless him.
How's the weather in Delaware?
I think it's up to 19 degrees today. The sun is out.
You're having a heat wave.
Yeah, we're having, even Florida's cold, so it's a thing. Well, Bob, thanks for calling in. We thank you for listening, and hope everything is well.
Thank you for what you do on the station too, Larry.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Larry, when you talk about Trump went in there as a businessman, and he's running the executive branch as a businessman would. In other words, he's looking out for, and a business would look out for their stockholders.
Right.
He's looking out for the people. And so when he talks about win, he's talking about real winning. He's talking about making a real effect and running the thing right. And I got to tell you something, the numbers are with Trump.
Oh, they are. Facts speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
The gentleman that called in earlier, I think, was who we lost. He got cut off when the second call came in, and I apologize for that. But you have to understand, sir, that the facts speak louder than words, and you can't overrule facts.
Yeah, I think it was John Adams said the facts can be an inconvenient truth.
Yeah, I think he did say that. John Adams did say the facts are an inconvenient truth. So, when the nation was in its founding days. But Jay, we really appreciate you coming on. We'll be concluding in a few minutes.
A lot of fun, Larry. Thank you for having me.
And I probably should have opened the lines earlier. But Jay, it is, unless there is they get more people involved. The only time that I was involved when Shamey rebuilt the party.
I remember those days.
He was a conservative.
Yes.
We included everybody. We started groups all over the place. We opened the doors. We raised more money than anyone had to raise. We had the biggest convention that had ever been done. We took it to the Democrats in all the districts. And you have to do that. The man might be right. Sometimes you wonder if it's relevant. But you have to do polling to find out if your message that you're trying to sell is going to sell. You could tweet your message, not change your position, but tweet it so it's more appealable to the masses.
Right.
And those things can only be done in focus groups. And if you don't focus group your message, it's tough because you and I might think something, but 99% of the public thinks the other way. So, you never know.
And you want to get elected.
And the name of the game is win.
That's right. Get elected.
To get elected. We hope to see more of you in the years to come, and we hope you stay involved, and we hope you're going to go off and help candidates. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and I am going to try to get 5 activists on next week to talk about the future of the GOP, where they want it to go.
I'm going to do a quick today in history. World War II, this day in history, 1943. The Battle of Stalingrad comes to conclusion as Soviet troops accept the surrender of 91,000 remnants of the Axis forces.
Thank you, Joey, for your day in history. This is Larry Novak, and we will see you next Saturday between the hours of 11 to 12.